your organization before you ask your question. We're good. Yes, this is transcribed.
I guess I'm ready to go.
Okay,
All right.
We'll open up with the front bill.
Hi, Bill.
Could you just kind of address your decision to leave a place, the arch rival, that you've been for so long, and what was it that made you decide to come here?
Well, the first thing, you're right. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have had the opportunity to work at two of the greatest programs in the country and in all of college football. And then when you luckily you add Notre Dame in there, I kind of say, wow, I've had a pretty good run. And the big thing, leaving Michigan was a very tough decision. I spent 13 years there. But I also have spent 19 out of the last 24 years coordinating. And to have the opportunity to be a co-coordinator at a great university like Ohio State was something an opportunity that I really wanted to pursue. And that was the biggest thing.
What would your role at Michigan have been if you had stayed?
Defensive line coach. And that's what I was for the last 4 years. With Coach Hoke, I was the defensive coordinator, and two or three of the years with Gary Moeller and Lloyd earlier, I was the coordinator.
Front row, middle. Dave?
Hi, Greg. Dave Biddle from 24/7 Sports. Welcome. I know a lot goes into it when you're running a defense, but if you had to just kind of break down your defensive philosophy in a nutshell, how would you explain your defensive philosophy?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd like to say on that, on running a defense, I'm also very excited about the fact that there'll be co-coordinators. And the last time I was a co-coordinator, we were fortunate enough to win the national championship at Florida. And we have a guy by the name of Jeff Hafley who will be co-coordinator. And Jeff is one of the very best secondary coaches around. And we've had the opportunity the last 3 weeks to meet, and really not even as much football as we wanted to, right? The last week or so we have. And I've just been so impressed with his knowledge of the back end. So together, the two of us will try to put together what is best for the team. And, as far as what we're going to run, I'm not going to go into that. I know one thing, we're excited about the young men that we're having the opportunity to coach, and we'll go from there.
Third row left. Dan?
Dan Hope from 11 Warriors. Greg, you being a co-defensive coordinator but not having a specific position group, kind of how do you see yourself splitting time in terms of working with the different position groups?
I'm going to be the greatest young assistant coach you've ever seen. I already said to Larry Johnson, we have competed for years. And I look at Larry as being one of the best, if not the best, defensive line coach in the country. Now, I've coached defensive line a long time, and I'm not going to say where I rank. It's not my job to say that. But I did say to him, Larry, when you coach D-line, there's a lot of times on a practice field when there's special teams, and the D-line's not really involved in that a lot. I said, let me be your assistant. Put me wherever you want. I'll coach whatever you want right there, and it'll be two of us doing it. So, I'll be helping out with wherever needed. I'll be with the backers a lot. Al Washington will do a tremendous job with them. But there's two inside backers, and then there's sometimes an outside linebacker, which is a different position, and that's where I can help with that.
Front row right. Austin?
Hey, Greg. Austin Ward from Lettermen Row. When you said you wanted to come here, and Ryan Day's at the top. How familiar were you with him? What's your relationship like? What's it like now to be working under him?
Well, I was fortunate enough at Florida to know Ryan Day. Ryan Day was a great young coach then, and I'll remember him. When you coach, there's guys that you come across that are younger coaches that come in, and you're not with them a long time. He's a guy that right away you knew. They said, this guy's good now. And then you watch where he's gone and what he's done. And then from afar, you see what he did the start of the season last year and where he's gone with that. And, I just am excited. And then every day I'm around him. That's the thing. Every day you're around a guy, you say, man, this guy's good. I've been very fortunate. I've been with some great head coaches. I think Jim Harbaugh is a tremendous head coach. Brady Hoke, I thought, was a great head coach. Everybody that I've been fortunate enough to be with, I'm going to say it, they were great head coaches, and I'm really excited about being with Ryan.
What was it like to prepare for his offenses the last couple of years, and what changes did he kind of make there? What challenges did he pose for you?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to talk about that much, right now. I'm not talking about that versus that kind of thing. All I'm talking about is, it's really exciting to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Fourth row left, Andy?
Hi, Andy Anders, Buckeye Grove. Has there been any changes in your philosophy as a defensive coordinator since you were last coordinating a defensive coordinator?
I don't think there's been any changes. I think you grow. When you're with good people, again, I've been with some good people. Don Brown has had a great run up there, at Michigan, and to be with him has been great. The thing I really believe in, and I'm glad Jeff believes the same thing. The two of us are right on the same page. Put the defense, run the defense that goes with your talent. And if you have talent in the back end, make that a big part. If you have talent in the front end, turn them loose. Let them do it. Don't water them down. And, so I think the thing that we're going to do is find out through the spring practice and that where we are that way.
And right next door, Colin?
Colin Gay, the Lantern. I guess as a former defensive line coach, how can you evaluate what Larry Johnson has done at this university, especially continuing bringing in defensive line talent each year like he has?
As I mentioned before, I have the utmost respect for Larry Johnson. Recruiting against him, whenever you play in a league together, you always get a chance to see the other team's defensive line. And I would always watch their defensive line and watch his coaching. And all you got to do is look what he's done with guys and where they've gone to the next level. And like I said, I have the utmost respect for what he's done. And if anybody that's ever watched, they know this guy's a great D-line coach.
And I'm sure you met Zach Harrison when you were recruiting him for Michigan. I'm just wondering your relationship with him, what you've seen out of him, getting him, or even when he made the decision to come to Ohio State. What have you seen out of Zach Harrison through the recruiting process and through his first couple weeks?
Zach Harrison is a number one, great character. That's the first thing. Number two, he's an unbelievable athlete. To be that big and that strong and everything like that. And then watching, like we had Matt drills today, and just watching him in the weight room, and that's what we've tried to do. The new coaches that have come in have all tried to be around the players, to get to know them. And he's everything you thought when you recruited him, and he's a special athlete.
Front row left, Doug?
Doug Lamarice, Cleveland.com. Greg, what did you think of Ohio State while you were at Michigan?
Well, you got tremendous respect. You got the two winningest programs in college football. You can't help but say this is a great program. And I go back again. Sometimes you like to pinch yourself. I say, you've been at Michigan and you got a chance to go to Ohio State, and now you're at Ohio State. You've been at two of the greatest programs. I had the utmost respect for him. Yeah, the other thing that Urban Meyer and I were together at Notre Dame, at Florida, and what he built and what he sustained and kept going and he's done, that speaks for itself.
And I know you're far from the first person to change sides in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, but 13 years is a long time at Michigan. I know this is a business also, but isn't there something to that? Is there anything about this was difficult for you to switch sides in this rivalry, or could possibly be difficult for Ohio State fans to embrace you after 13 years at Michigan?
Well, I can't control what the Ohio State fans do. The only thing I'm going to tell you that they will see in watching me coach is they're going to see me give everything I can to this program. They're going to see that I will always try to coach the players the best they can possibly be coached. And how they perceive it and what they do, that's up to them. As far as the rivalry and as far as that, it's always hard. When you leave people you've been with for 13 years, when you leave people that any job, the one thing about college football, when you leave one program and go to another, that's one of the hardest things there is, because different college than other things, you're giving everything you have to those players. You are every minute with them, trying to make them the best you can be. So, and that's the way I've always been as a coach, is I've always tried to say, I'm going to give you everything I can to make you the best you can be. Now you got to give it back. So it's always difficult.
Is it different, though, because it's Ohio State, Michigan, or would you say, no, it's just taking another job?
Well, I don't know if it's different or not. I know one thing, when I left at one time and went to Notre Dame, that was a hard deal. When I left Notre Dame and went to Florida, that was a hard deal. I'm saying that everywhere I've ever left, because I've really tried to give everything to the people I'm working with. And I never have planned. One thing I can always say, too, is I've never been one of those guys that said, boy, I want to do a good job here so I can go there. I've thought I was going to stay at every place I've been for my whole life. And nothing's changed that way.
I got time for one more question. Front row, Angelique.
Greg, Angelique Chingelis, Detroit News. Greg, when were you approached about this job? What was Harbaugh's reaction to it? Did he try to keep you? And since it's the last question, I'll ask a couple at once. Did you get a chance to talk to the players, and what was their reaction?
Well, Coach State called after, I can't remember the date or anything like that, but approached me on the job. Then obviously I went and talked to the head football coach. Coach Harbaugh was great, okay? And he understood that I wanted to coordinate, and it was an opportunity to be a coordinator, and that was what I wanted to do, and not much you're going to do about that. The hardest thing probably was calling the players. And again, it's been hard everywhere you're ever at because of what you give those players and what they give you. But that's part of life. I mean, IBM, if you're working for IBM or somebody like that, someday you have to call somebody and say you're going somewhere else. It's the same thing, but it was hard. It's always hard.
And you went to West Bloomfield. I know that they sent you some balloons and stuff, some of the former players. What was
I didn't know that. I didn't see the balloons. You know me, Angelique. I don't see those things.
I heard they handed them to you.
I'm not going to answer any more questions, Angelique.
Coach, thank you very much. All righty. Thanks, folks. I appreciate your guys' willingness to not be able to hold these guys for so long. Next coach we're going to bring up is co-defensive coordinator and secondary coach Jeff Hafley.
What's up, everybody? How's it going?
We're going to open it up far left. Lori, you good?
Hi, Lori.
Lori Schmidt, 105.7 The Zone. Are you a scheme guy, or are you a guy that likes to take your talent and work with that first? I mean, what are your philosophies about working with defensive backs?
Sure, good question. I think I'm both. There's places I've been, you've had to really rely on scheme. There's places you've been, you really got to rely on your talent. We have talent here, so I think we got to make the most of our talent, like Coach said. And I think we have to make it easy for our players to play fast, do what they do best, coach them up, fundamentals, technique. We need to do a good job with that, but there'll be scheme involved as well. So a little bit of both.
Second row left. Bill?
Jeff, Bill Landis from The Athletic. There's been it's been a strong philosophy here for the last few years of playing press man coverage with the quarterbacks. That sort of, they oftentimes refuse to deviate from that. Just wondering where that falls in with your philosophy, how diverse you get with your coverages.
Yeah, I think, spending the last 7 years in the NFL, I've watched a lot of these guys. I've studied them as I've got ready for the draft and the combine, and I've watched them play press, and they've done a great job. They've been coached well, and they've obviously been very talented. I'm a big believer in playing press, but I also believe you have to change it up. So we'll be some press, we'll be some off, we'll be a little bit of everything, but it's a good question because I know how much they've pressed here. But we'll continue to do some of that, and we'll do some other stuff as well.
And then with you and Greg both being co-coordinators, just how do you see that working out? Is it a situation where you coordinate the back end and he coordinates the front seven, or how do you mesh your ideas together?
Well, I think he did a great job answering that as I sat in the back when he was up here. I think he's one of the I've known him even when I was in the NFL. I've known of Greg Mattison, and is one of the best D-line coaches, one of the best college football coaches, in the country. I knew he was in the NFL. I knew he coordinated in the NFL, and I think his knowledge of the front seven is just sitting there talking with him is as good as I've ever been around. And I think the combination, I think it's going to be something special. And I think just knowing Coach, and him and I talked before we took this. I mean, we wanted to make sure it fit right. And so far, it's been awesome. The meetings we have been really good, and I've enjoyed it. So I think it'll be a really good mesh of his knowledge, my knowledge, but he knows stuff about the back end too, and I know stuff about the front end too. So I think we'll just continue to work it together.
And right next door in the second row, Ari.
Hi, Jeff. Ari Wasserman, The Athletic. The defense is returning a lot of players who played last year, but there's also a lot of talented players behind them. And, there's been some debate among fans, among people, about if the right players or if younger players were getting their due diligence or their chance to get into the game. I'm wondering, as a guy who walks in and has all this talent at his disposal, how do you analyze everybody from top to bottom in terms of who plays, starting positions, and all that? I mean, you just start from square one, analyze everybody, and go from there, or is precedent or anything that's occurred ever?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I think all of us, Greg's might have seen it a little bit more because he's played against Ohio State. And I've obviously studied the tape. I watched a little bit before I took the job. But for me, the best guys are going to play. And I mean that. I've started free agents over first-round draft picks. If I see a guy outworking another guy, the whole room's going to see that. The whole defense is going to see it. So if that guy shows that he's better, we're going to get the best guys on the field. And I want guys to feel that way. It's our job to play the best players. I'll always say, I see better than I hear. Just show me. Put it on tape. Do the right things. Work. And then if you're the best, you'll play. And if it's close, we'll find a role for you. But that's our jobs to do as coaches, get the best guys out there.
Is it a tough position to be in to analyze or to break down an entire defensive roster from scratch?
No, I don't think so. I think you just got to spend time, turn on the tape. I think that's why these morning workouts are important. And I think that's why spring football will be important. It will give us the opportunity to do that. And I know we're all very excited about that.
And right behind Ari, Dan.
Hey, Jeff. Dan Murphy.
Yeah.
You guys have a particularly young coaching staff, I think, or a lot of the additions are guys that are still looking on the bright side of 40, I think. Does it feel young around here at this?
I don't think so. I'm almost 40, so I'm like one of the older guys now. I finally feel that way. But I just left an NFL staff where the head coach was 39. Some of my buddies in the NFL are 33, head coaches, 34. So no, I don't look at that at all. I think there's good coaches young, good coaches old. So I think we have a really good mix. You get Coach Johnson and Coach Mattison, two of the best in the business who have, some more years. But then Coach Washington, Coach Barnes, myself, even some of the quality control and the GAs and the interns around here. They got a great group. So I don't think about the age or the youth at all.
Third row right, Rob.
Rob Oliver, Columbus Dispatch. 7 years since you've been out recruiting.
Yeah.
Stepping back into that adjustment from really dealing with men in the NFL. Some are in their 30s, right? So
yep.
Trying to deal with 18-year-old kids. How are you going to make that adjustment? And have you talked to Coach Day about his expectations? What does he expect out of recruiting?
Well, out of the recruiting, I think he expects me to go out and get the best players, and that's what I expect out of myself. When I was at Pitt, I did it for a long time. I recruited some really good players. Getting on the road, getting on airplanes and traveling, I had to get used to doing that again. I got a little tired going from city to city. But that's exciting because we don't have to draft them now. We get to go pick them. So I get more than one pick. Coach tells me you get two DBs in this draft. I get more than two DBs now. we get to go evaluate, we get to go pick them. And if we want them, we better work and get them. And that fires me up to give us a chance to do it. And I believe I have the experience with what I've learned over the last 7 years to give a lot to offer to these guys. And as far as the NFL player compared to the college player, I saw that when I entered the league. I coached Rondé Barber. He was 37 years old. I was 31. He told me all players want to be told what to do and how hard to do it. And he said, if you do that and have a relationship with them, you'll be fine. I think the misconception is that it's different. I don't believe it is. Richard Sherman will call me, we'll talk just as close as I've been with 18, 19-year-olds. You want to develop relationships. You want to develop trust. You want the guy to run through a wall for you because he knows he has your back, because he knows you love him. And you want that relationship no matter how old they are. And I think the same will go with these guys as it did his coaching in the NFL. So I'm excited, though. I'm excited to get back on the road and recruit. I am.
Front row right, Tim?
Yeah, Coach, Tim May, dispatch free agent.
Okay.
He retired this year.
What did
Welcome
Ryan?
back.
What did Ryan Day tell you he wants fixed defensively, or new look, whatever it is you want to call it? Because obviously, this team had great problems last year, giving up gash plays, big time plays, etc. What is it he wants most from you, new guys, defensively?
Ryan didn't talk about fixing anything. When Ryan called me and we started to speak, we just talked. We talked about the possibility of me coming back to college football, what he saw me doing, but we never talked about fixing anything. I have a ton of respect for Coach Schiano. He's a mentor to me. And obviously, you guys know I've been around him for a long time. We never got into it. And I'll never say anything bad about the defense, about the scheme, because I've been on other sides of that. You know, the new guys come in and think everything was wrong. It's not. There's a lot of right. And he did a good job on a lot of things, and I mean that. So our job is to get better. We have to. And Coach Mattison and I will do the best we can along with the staff to make sure we do that, to get the players better fundamentally, their technique, and then we'll figure out the scheme from there.
And having been in the NFL, what is it that experience has given you from a broad range, maybe point of view, that you'd like to bring back to the college game?
It's a good question too. The biggest thing is if you look at it, for the last 7 years I've coached 140 games, right? So I've gotten ready for 140 games in 7 years. In the off season, there's no recruiting. So today, instead of doing this, I'd be in my office just studying tape all day in the off season. The players can't even be in until April. So every off season for 7 years, I studied tape and I learned. And I feel like that education, that knowledge, you know, I've had some scars. You know, I've gotten beat on things by trial and error. But I think that has really allowed me to become a better football coach. I think the best thing that ever happened to me was I had the opportunity to go to the National Football League and just study football for 7 years. Because now I feel like I've seen a lot, you know, and I think that will help.
All right, over here, Clay.
Yeah, Clay
Just a couple more, folks.
ABC 6, Fox 28. What was it like, Greg Mattison, that the opportunity to coordinate was the attraction? Why do you leave the league to come?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people have asked me that. I wanted to coordinate, and I was ready to coordinate. But there's more to it than that, because I've had opportunities the past few years to coordinate, to come back to college. I had opportunities to go be some type of coordinator in the NFL this past year. I came back here because this is a special place, and I mean that, not just because I'm sitting here. You get a chance to coordinate at a place where you can win a lot of games. That's important, but there's more to it than that. You get to coordinate where you can win a lot of games with the right type of people. And that's the culture here. That's where it's different. I didn't want to go to a place where the culture wasn't right, where you weren't around good people. And that's what I talked to Ryan about. And I know Coach Meyer has done that, and I know Ryan will continue to do that. It's the right type of player here. It's the right type of head coach here, and it's the right staff here. So there's more to it than winning and losing. You want to do it the right way with the right people. Those are all the things that drew me here. And I studied that, and I talked to a lot of people about that.
Why are they right?
Why are they right?
Yeah.
They've recruited the right type of people. They've recruited the right type of guy. They're smart, they're tough, they're reliable. They come to work. If any of you guys saw the mat drills today, for 30 minutes, I was in shock. I hadn't seen anything like that in a long time. I mean, I said to Ryan when I walked out, I said, I had the chills. I mean, but they've recruited the right type of guy. The guy that's going to do the right thing. The guy that's going to go to class. The guy that's going to treat people the right way. The guy that's going to come to work and give it all he has. Because you guys know at other places they don't do that. There's a lot of teams that are different, but this place is special for a lot of reasons.
And last questions for Jeff, front row left, Doug.
Just some scheme stuff. Doug Lamreese, Cleveland.com. How much do you expect to be in nickel? A lot of teams almost use nickel as a base. What's your philosophy on that?
Well, I think we'll have to be in both based on who we're playing, based on how we match up for certain teams. You know, are they going to run the ball? Are they going to throw the ball? What the down and distance is? What personnel are they in? What tendency is it? How good is their slot receiver? How good's our Sam? How good's our nickel? So I'd love to talk scheme with you for the next 30 minutes, but there's going to be so much that goes into that because, I mean, we got to do a good job. Coach Mattison, myself, and the staff have to do a good job week to week trying to figure that out.
They've rotated corners a lot
Yeah,
in the past couple
I've
years.
seen that.
Do you like that idea, or do you sort of like, hey, if I got two guys who are our best corners, I want them out there?
Well, that's funny because I remember the first time I had Lattimore up on a 30 visit, and I was so confused. I was like, why are you rotating? if you're going to be the top 5 pick in the draft, what's wrong with you? Why are you rotating? He's like, well, coaches rotate me. Then the next year it's Denzel Ward out. I'm like, why are you rotating? Like, what is going on here? He's like, well, the next guy's probably a first-round pick too, coach. And that just goes back to, I didn't get it at the time. I was like, what are they doing? But the next guy's a first-round pick, right? So it goes back to the question I think you asked me before. If a guy's good enough to play, we have to get him on the field. And if he's doing everything right, we have to find a role for him. So if we got 3 first-round picks at corner, and I'm not saying we do, we better find a way to use them, right? So I think we'll figure that out. We'll figure it out.
And real quick, when corners, when the ball's in the
Who's
air.
do I answer now, him or Dave? Okay.
We all want this. We all want this. This is the number one question for Ohio State fans.
Go
for
ahead.
anyone coaching
This is for the
secondary.
fans. I'm not joking. I'm serious.
For real, you guys know. Do you want your corners turning and looking for the ball?
All right, so here's the deal on that one. And if I ever see any of you guys tweet, do you think that we as DB coaches sit there and say, don't look back for the ball? Like, my wife used to come up to me after games and be like, hey, why don't our guys turn back and look for the ball? I'm like, do you want to see my individual tape? All we do is practice turning and looking for the ball. DB coaches teach to turn and look for the football. We promise you we will practice to teach. This is awesome that you asked this, because now no one can tweet this out or say this. We are going to work on turning and looking and trying to intercept the football when we're in man. Now, there's certain parts of the field where it's not good to do that. So if we don't do it in a game, it might be a certain part of the field. But I promise you, come and watch individual. We'll turn and look for the ball. I don't know if you're allowed to or not. Don't trick me. I don't know all the rules.
We're not allowed, so that's
all right, sorry.
Jeff, real quick, Dave Biddle from 24/7
Hey, Dave.
Sports. Real quick, do you plan on coaching from the box or the field?
That is a good question. I think myself, Coach Mattison, and Ryan will have to talk about that. We haven't brought it up yet. I know where I'd like to be, but I'm not going to tell you that yet.
Coach,
Not because just because I don't want to be lying to you. I don't know where I'll be. It's for the fans. You know what? I might want to go up in the box just so people don't recognize me around here. Thanks, guys.
All right, we're going to turn over to the offensive side of the ball. We're going to bring down passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach Mike Yurcich. Good afternoon. We're going to open up right here on the right with Austin.
Hi, Austin. Lettermen Row. Hi. My understanding is that for the last several years, you've had multiple opportunities to go coordinate or coach elsewhere. What finally made Ohio State the pick for you?
You know, Ohio State and why I came here, there's probably about 105 good reasons right now for me to talk about, but to really, to cut to the chase, it was part, you know, coming home and becoming or being part of something as great as Ohio State. And I'm very humbled, my family's very humbled to be a part of that.
When you look and sit down and talk offense with Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson, how similar are your ideas? What new things are you trying to bring to this offense?
Well, for me right now, it's not bringing anything except past experience, maybe similar concepts and the knowledge I have about quarterback play and offensive play in general. But for me, it's a time to learn. It's a critical time for me to develop and to learn what Ohio State does on offense. And, you know, that's what concerns me most. And there's a lot of similar concepts in football, you know, all together, whether it be NFL, college, Big 12, Big 10. There's a lot of carryover. So there's a lot of similar concepts, but there's a lot different. And that would intrigue me most about this particular position is the dynamics of this offense and how comprehensive it is and how quarterback-friendly this system is. And that's what I saw from the outside looking in, and you don't know until you start getting in the guts of it and really working it. But this is exactly what I had hoped it to be as far as the friendliness of the quarterback system and how comprehensive it is and complete.
Front row left, Steven.
When you look at what this offense, Steven means Cleveland.com. When you look at what this offense achieved last season, just from a sheer number standpoint, but they did lose a lot of those guys who put up those numbers. How do you plan to replace the 3 wide receivers and a quarterback who pretty much broke records?
I think it's really important as a coach when you're trying to develop an offense that you don't compare it necessarily one year to the next. I think you can be setting yourself up. What we have to do is to take this group of guys and see where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, where we can grow the most, and try to become the best offense that we can be and maximizing our personnel. That's what concerns us the most, not necessarily dwelling on losses or inefficiencies, but maybe more strengths, weaknesses. Where do we need to grow the most? Where do we need to improve the most? And that comes, this time of year, we're trying to figure those things out, and that will progress all the way until spring and into fall camp.
And Justin said that you guys have already started to look at film and things like that. What's it been like growing a relationship with Justin Fields in the short time that you both have been here?
Well, it's a process, and nowhere near where it needs to be. Obviously, it takes time. It takes time, and it takes an investment on both ends, and an openness, and just trying to create a dialogue. And for me, as a quarterback coach, I have to try to learn how the quarterbacks learn the best. And everybody processes information a little bit differently. Everybody has a different mentality. Everybody has different emotions. And so for me, it's a real great opportunity to take the time in this off season to learn all those things about each individual. Not just Justin, but all the quarterbacks in the room and all the offensive players and all of the coaches and everybody that's involved, everybody in this building. You're just trying to get to know everybody and develop those relationships. And it takes a lot of time, and you can't just jump into a situation and pretend that you know everything about everybody. It takes a lot of time and investment.
Second row right, Bill.
Right. Right. Bill Bender, Sporting News. You mentioned the quarterback-friendly system. Now, obviously, I don't know how much you got to watch what Dwayne was doing with Ryan Day last year, but how much did that influence, you wanting to be here and work with the quarterbacks they have here now?
Well, I think I partly answered that question earlier in the fact that when you're watching college football, we also try to study, who's most productive when you're trying to develop your own offense, and you're trying to be conscious of different teams and different schemes, and whoever's leading the country, it seems to be the teams that you study the most. So obviously, we tried to peek at Ohio State film and look at see what they're doing, cutting edge and developmental, and obviously from the outside looking in, it was very intriguing. A lot of high efficiency offense, but yet balanced. And that's very intriguing anytime you're looking at an offense from my mind. And so from the outside looking in, very intriguing. And then when you get inside it and you get to work it a little bit more and you get to have more discussions, more football discussions, you learn that what you had hoped it would be, it is. And so this is a great time for me to learn this offense. So I really hesitate to fully answer your question because I'm still learning. There's so much more football for me to learn, and I'm just trying to do my part, keep my head down, and be the best quarterback coach I can be.
When Justin was on, I don't know how much you were around him during the recruiting, the 7-on-7 and the camps and those kind of things. Did you notice that high efficiency, output in his game?
The film that I've looked at, I think he's very dynamic, and he hasn't practiced one snap with us, so I'm not going to give any evaluations because it'd be unfair for me to go on one particular player and not the other. So I'd be more than happy to answer that question as spring ball progresses. I hope that answers that.
Front row right, Tim.
Yeah, Coach. Tim May, dispatch free agent. Bottom line is, did you look at Matt Baldwin at all? Obviously, he was the starting quarterback of a Texas 6A Division I team that went to the state finals. What do you remember about him at all from the recruiting process?
Very accurate passer, very cerebral type guy. When we were in Texas quite a bit at my previous stop, and Lake Travis is a heck of a program, and I developed a relationship with his offensive coordinator, Michael Wall. So I knew how well he was coached, and I knew how efficient he was, and how high-powered that team was, and especially on offense. So very aware of him.
And do you get the sense that everybody in the country would like to have a little bit of a Big 12 offense in their offense? And what does Big 12 offense mean to you when you hear that term?
I think everybody wants to win games. I think that's the most important thing. And I think one of the best quotes was by Tom Brady recently, the most important stats wins. And everything else really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many yards you throw for. It doesn't matter how many points you score, as long as you have more points than the opposition at the end of the day. And really that's what concerns us the most. What does Big 12 offense mean? I think the air raid was kind of mainstream in that conference, and it's branched off, and I think even the true air raid guys have even developed into more of an RPO system, more of tight end play. Everything adapts and everything changes, and you get more air raid, and then you get more drop 8 teams. You're starting to see more 0 and 4 eyes, and not the true traditional drop 7 teams, so that complicates things, and then so the air raid had to kind of develop. So I think it's morphed. It's all morphed, and it's bled in different areas, and it's bled into the NFL. And so, what is Big 12 offense? I don't think you can just point and click at it. I think it's more of a philosophy of spreading the field and throwing the ball down the field vertically, and trying to create space, more or less. But I think that is now commonplace in different types of the country and at different levels.
Second row, third row left, Dan.
Dan Murphy from ESPN. How do you work with a quarterback in flux? Does it change at all when Justin doesn't know his situation for 2019, and how would that affect sort of the depth of the room you've got?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Sure. With Justin Fields waiting on a 2019 eligibility waiver, does that change the way that you approach the quarterback room and the depth you have until you have a decision?
My job is to coach the quarterbacks, regardless of whether it's a walk-on, whether it's a scholarship player, if they're in the room, they're getting coached hard. And my job is to develop all of their talents. That's what we promise our student athletes as we're recruiting them, our prospects as we're recruiting them. That's what we tell their parents, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's what my history has proven, and our history and our philosophy is just to develop the person and the player here, and we're trying to do that with each individual.
Said he was sort of learning the offense along with you a lot over the past month or so. How has that process played out for you, and is it helpful at all to have someone next to you who's going through the same thing?
Yeah, I think it is. I think I don't know if it's helpful, but you have to, I think, be aware of that situation. You can't pretend. You can't walk into a room and think you know everything. I mean, I'm learning the offense right with them, and it's open dialogue, and I probably ask more questions than they ask. And I'm not afraid to ask some stupid questions. So I'll ask the uncomfortable, stupid questions because I don't care. I want the information to be processed, and I want us to have good football conversations, and I want us to develop the best we can in that room and to have the most knowledge that we can when we snap the ball from an information processing standpoint. And that's my job, and this is a very unique opportunity and a great opportunity for me to develop as a coach, but I have a huge responsibility in developing these quarterbacks as well.
Last couple for Mike, front second row left, Bill.
Hi, Mike. Bill Landis from The Athletic. When you're making career decisions, for you personally, how much do you weigh the opportunity to step into a situation where it's more of a revamp of the offense as opposed to stepping into a situation where an offense is more established and you're sort of being brought into that? And how has that informed the decisions you've made throughout your career?
That's a heck of a question. That is, I think a lot of things factor into all those different types of situations. I think Coach Hafley answered it best when he said he decided to come here because it was great people. And that is a huge factor in everything. Our coaches, getting to know Coach Day through the process, and now that I'm here and able to establish relationships with the players, you're able to see that the person element, the human quality is awesome here. The character here is great. But all of those things factor into your decision of whether or not to take a particular job. And so there's a comfort, and you have to be also very aware of that comfort because you don't, as a coach, and as any profession, and I'm sure in your profession it's the same thing, you don't want to become too comfortable. You want to get out of that comfort zone in order to improve, but you also want to set yourself up for success. So I think my answer to the question that was asked me earlier is that I just want to be part of something great, and coming to Ohio State is kind of a no-brainer for me, and I'm very humbled to be in this situation.
When you talk to some offensive coordinators, though, they say that the opportunity to call the plays and really put your fingerprint or thumbprint, whatever you call it, on the offense, like that's the fun part of it. And it seems like maybe you're giving up some of that to be a part of this, and I'm just wondering if that was a difficult conversation to have with yourself.
Well, I think you're onto it, but I don't think it's very difficult to come to Ohio State, in short, and to be part of this program, this tradition, and to come home for me is a no-brainer.
And last question, third row right, Rob.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch. Every coach is a product of who they've coached under. Mike Gundy, we see him a certain way. What did you learn from him? What do you bring to this place that you picked up from him?
Well, what I've tried to learn from Coach Gundy is that he is himself, and you have to be yourself in this profession. I can't try to be Mike Gundy, and I'm damn sure not going to grow a mullet. But he's unique. He's got his own style, and I think that's the most important. He's a genuine human being that cares about student athletes. That's probably the biggest take from Coach Gundy is how to treat people and to improve upon that every day. And it's about character. At the end of the day, recruit character, and that's what we do here. And that's why I wanted to join up with Ohio State, is because there's such a common thread with that.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alrighty, folks, our next new assistant coach is special teams coordinator and assistant secondary coach, Matt Barnes.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for being here today.
Well, we'll open up here, front row right. Austin?
Hey, Matt, Austin Ward from Lettermen Row. I've asked all these guys this, but what was the most appealing part of Ryan Day's sales pitch or wanting to come join here?
Well, it's a special place. Winning his football program in college football history, and just so much tradition. A chance to compete for a championship every year, but also to be a part of, for lack of a better way to put it, doing things the right way. Developing young men, giving them an opportunity to be successful in the classroom, on the field, and then the years that they spend after they're done playing football.
I know it's pretty early days for you guys getting together as that defensive staff, but what's the dynamic like? Because it seems like there's a lot of shared responsibilities from different guys, and you and Jeff in the secondary, I guess, particularly.
Sure, yeah. It's been great so far. I had the opportunity to work with Coach Mattison in the past, so I can't tell you how much football I learned from Coach during that experience, and a lot of smart people in the room. And I think Coach Hafley mentioned it before, but it's the full-time staff members all the way down to the GAs and the QCs. And no idea is a bad idea. And when the door's closed, a lot of opinions are being talked through, and at the end of the day, we make a decision and we go full speed ahead with it. But the dynamic has been it's been awesome so far, and for me as a little bit younger coach, it's been afforded me the opportunity to learn from some great minds. So it's been so far it's been unbelievable.
Third row left, Dan.
Dan Oak from 11 Warriors. Matt, as a special teams coordinator, kind of what's your philosophy to how to be successful on special teams? And is there anything specific you're really trying to drill into these players as you get started here in your first year?
Well, just trying to continue to develop and continue to cultivate the importance of special teams, which has been phenomenal here. It's been done at the highest level here, so that's already in place. So just continuing to develop that is a big part of it. Keeping in mind we're going to play our best players on special teams. I think the thing that I hope to maybe shed a little bit more light on or bring to the forefront a little bit more is that's really not just special teams. When you're teaching the kicking game, obviously the things that the punters, the kickers, the holders, and the snappers, the specialists do are a little bit different. But beyond that, it's really just general fundamentals of playing the game of football. So.
When Urban Meyer was here, he was really involved in special teams himself, and it was a really collaborative effort with all the coaches being involved. Do you see it being similar here, where every coach is going to have a part in what you guys do on special teams?
For sure, and again, I think that's a big part of the culture is that all the coaches have been bought in the past, and I expect that to continue. Alluding to the GAs and QCs again, I think I've got the best one in the country. Parker Fleming was very involved last year in game planning and the day-to-day things, we've been fortunate to keep him here, and I can already tell what a bright young mind he is. But definitely input from the staff. Guys being bought in and coaching those special teams periods as hard as they would coach their position, indie work, or whatever it may be. Expect that to continue.
Front row left, Doug.
Doug Landry, Cleveland.com. In terms of the secondary, will the corners and safeties be in meeting rooms together, or will they be coached separately? How will you guys handle that?
I would defer to Coach Hafley on that. Coach Hafley and I both feel strongly that in the secondary, I think sometimes, as much as coaches, we all want to be involved and we all want to have input. I think sometimes you've got to be careful about having too many voices in the secondary. And there's so much communication that goes on between the corners and the safeties and the nickels and everything else that, if they're hearing it, even just little things in verbiage and things like that, if it's not said on the same, if everybody's not on the same page in the back end, that's how you see catastrophe on the back end. So, I expect to play off of each other a little bit. I can't tell you how excited I am to learn from Coach Hafley. I've learned a ton of back-end play already just in the short time that we've spent together. So.
And as was mentioned before, Urban Meyer basically called himself the special teams coach, when he was here. So this is a little bit of a change, it feels like, for Ohio State. What's the advantage of having an assistant sort of with that title that you have? And they've had a guy sometimes in the past who've had that title,
Sure.
but why is this setup maybe the right way to go?
Well, the head coach wears so many hats, and there will be many things that come across his desk that will thankfully never be anywhere near mine. So, it affords me the opportunity to really dive headfirst in it with minimal distractions. Mm-hmm.
Far left, Lori.
Lori Schmidt, 105.7 The Zone. You talked about playing your best players in the special teams, but generally those players are guys with a track record. In the past, OSU's also used special teams as sort of a proving ground for players who want to earn more playing time.
Sure.
Can you talk about that balance that you need to strike there? Is you want your best players in the field, and yet that's a way that young guys can earn PT?
Absolutely. You make a great point, and I think you've got to find that happy medium there of playing your best players, but also giving your young players a chance to develop and show themselves. I think a lesson I've learned the hard way in the past is that you're coaching everybody in that room, and although that guy may not be a starter for you on punt team, the first week of training camp, but it's a war of attrition in the Big Ten. It's a long season and it's a physical league, so you've got to get everybody in your room ready to play. And I think the other thing about special teams is it's not as involved from an X and O standpoint. So where you may have to get a position player really coached up on all the intricacies of what you're asking them to do that fits within your offensive or defensive scheme. On special teams, there are some little things, scheme things here and there, but at the end of the day, it's we say it's technique and effort. So get those guys right on their technique early on, and just watch them go play with their hair on fire. Definitely gives those guys young guys an opportunity to do something that they understand more quickly than maybe something at their offensive or defensive position, and a chance to go, show what they can do.
Since you said that's a lesson you learned the hard way, I didn't mean to bring up bad memories for you, but it sounds like there were occasions where that struck home with you. Can you tell us about those times?
Yes, ma'am. Even just this past season, if you looked at I was at the University of Maryland. If you looked at the starting punt team there in training camp, I don't think, other than the punter and the snapper, I don't think there was a single guy that made it through the whole season. So, again, you've got to understand that you certainly want those guys that are starting for you to be as sharp as they can be. But again, everybody needs to understand they're a rolled ankle away from being in the game.
We've got time for a couple more. Front row right, Tim.
Yeah, Tim, Coach, as you look at Ohio State's defense and you talked to Ryan Day before you took the job, what needs to be fixed compared to a year ago? You got to see them up close in one game, et cetera. But what just stood out that needed to be shored up?
I think sometimes, and having not been here, that's a difficult question to answer. I'm just viewing it from the outside looking in. My general thoughts on when things aren't going the way that you'd like them to go, I think you got to look at how much you're asking your players to do, or are you asking them to do too much? And again, I wasn't here, so I can't speculate on if that was the case or not. But I think you really want to spend your time on coaching the little things and making sure your guys are lined up correctly, their eyes are in the right place, they're playing in good football stances, their fundamentals are right, the communication is right on the back end. And I think if you're having issues, I think that's the first place to start. Go back to the basics, look at fundamental football. Are we leveraged properly? Are our eyes in the right place? Are we tackling the way we want our guys to tackle, general football?
Good. Right. Anyone else? Great. Coach, thank you very much. Thank you. And folks, we'll wrap up today's assistant coach press conference by bringing up linebacker coach and Columbus native Al Washington.
Good afternoon.
All right, we'll open up over the far left. Lori?
Lori Schmidt, 105.7 The Zone, Fulton Cook.
Thank you.
Past coaches here have had a policy of not using the word Michigan. I'm wondering if you're granted a waiver or whether you have to do push-ups every time.
I've banged out about 30 push-ups, so I'm not immune to it. But tons of respect. You want to get into the details of it, but I think I got to pass, I guess.
In all seriousness, no.
Yeah.
You're going from one side of the rivalry to the other, and that, to me, would seem to be a strange experience. And I'm wondering what that experience has been like for you.
Well, the football side of things, it's you still have a lot of the same elements, but yeah, it's an adjustment for sure. Especially when you're all in. I'm not one of those half foot out kind of guys. I'm all in. So, but a ton of respect for the coaches and the players there. So, it's a unique experience to say the least. But I'm excited about where I am and excited about what's ahead. So.
Second row left, Ari.
Al, when you come into a new place, you have returning starters or players that were starters last year, but you also have a lot of talent on the bench. How do you look at that from top to bottom? Do you have to reanalyze everything? How do you make decisions? Because the linebacker position last year was one of the most heavily talked about positions from a fan standpoint, in terms of are the right people playing, is the scheme the right way? How do you come in and just kind of tackle all of that?
Well, you got to give the kids a chance to prove themselves to you during the spring, right? Workouts. So my take has always been to evaluate the body of work that you have. So you look at some things about last year, and then consider what you're doing this year, and then give them a chance to show you if they can execute and do the things that you need them to do. So I feel like I can't accurately answer anything on that because, I'm getting here. I'm literally just getting here. The past 2 weeks we've been on the road. So having a chance to see these guys work out, having a chance to watch film, you can kind of get an idea. But I want to be accurate when I answer that. So I'm anxious to see this spring, really who's going to compete and they all can run. Every kid in that room is pretty talented. So to your point, so we'll get the right pieces in the right places. I'm confident.
Jobs are open.
I wouldn't say jobs are open, and I wouldn't say jobs are I wouldn't say anything like that. I just right now I'm just getting to know them. That's what I'm willing to say right now.
Front row right, Bill.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch. Could you just kind of discuss your decision, being a Columbus guy, having worked in Michigan for as long as you did, to come back here? What was that like emotionally for you? How hard a decision was that for you?
It was a hard decision, Like I said, I'm like, when you're in a place, wherever you are, you try to be all in, right? It's not like a stepping stone place. So you really, not only are you involved, your family's involved. So it's tough, it's really tough. But again, like you think about where you are, like, this is home for me. This is an unbelievable situation and a program. So you're excited in the same breath. So it's not I wouldn't put it in the easy category, but I'm fortunate in the same breath. So, but when you respect where you come from, when you respect the situation you were in, it's always a little more difficult.
And how tough a decision was it? What finally made you decide to come here?
A lot of reasons. I think Ohio State. I've known Coach Day and know the program tradition, but mom and dad are 20 minutes away. I got a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old. I mean, my wife went here. You know, a lot of who I am is from, you know, obviously the 614 and Columbus and father playing here. I mean, you all are pretty versed in that narrative. So I think those things definitely were major contributors to coming, that unique blend of everything. So, yeah.
Far right, Tony?
Tony Gerder with the Ozone. So did you seek out your parents' guidance on this?
I mean, yeah, we talk about it, but you know, ultimately, I'm 34. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I got to live it. So, you know, it wasn't like, I mean, we talked about it, but they understand that, you know, this is, you know, what I got to do for my family, you know, and that's kind of what the goal is.
And then Greg mentioned having 2 inside linebackers, 1 outside linebacker.
Yeah.
Should we expect what we saw at Michigan with the hybrid outside linebacker?
I mean, we're still talking through. What you can expect is an aggressive defense that's going to play fast. Okay. I mean, look, you know, we're going to simplify things to the way the guys can play with enthusiasm necessary to be productive. You know, and so we're, you know, again, I don't want to speak before, you know, we're still working through it, you know, but you know, to answer your question, we're going to see an aggressive defense. The guys playing fast. So.
Over here to the right, Clay.
Clay Hall, ABC6.
Yeah, Clay, how you doing? I remember you in high school, man. Yeah, man, you the man.
Yeah, I'm a dinosaur, that's for sure. Because I've done a couple stories with your dad here recently,
Yeah.
he went through the process that when you went to the team up north, as they call them here,
Yeah.
and his reaction to that, which was pretty interesting. So when you told him you were coming back, how did he react?
You know what, man? He empathized with me, man. I mean, he may come off as like, you know, but he understood it was tough, and you know, I mean, you know, he was a part of. I had to drag him. You know, I remember him coming to a spring game with you know, he had threw a Michigan hat on him, and he had a Ohio State jersey underneath. You know what I mean? So he, you know, he was excited for me because it was the best decision for me and the family. But he empathized. You know, he understands, and you know, there's a lot of shared respect there. So.
Is it true that when he went up there, I think for that spring game or a game, he said, yeah, you know, it's all right, and Coach Harbaugh's all right, but it's just too much blue.
That's true. That is a true statement. So, but yeah, he was around quite a bit, man. So, yeah.
Front row middle, Angelique.
Hey, Angelique, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
2 things. How close were you to staying at Michigan? And what did Harbaugh, did he try to give you a different, you know, position? And secondly, if I could piggyback, actually, could you answer that? And I'll ask you.
Yeah, no. I don't want to get into the details of everything, but I absolutely have a ton of respect for Coach Harbaugh. Been nothing but great for me, you know, and it was a tough decision, and you know, throughout it all, like he really respected where I was coming from. So, you know, that's kind of where I'll leave that.
If everyone could bear with me here. Just Devin Bush, what kind of pro is he going to be?
He's a football player, so you throw him in pros, you throw him in high school or college, he's going to play. He's one of the better players I've ever been around. So not so much, I mean, physically he is, but his mindset, and so I expect him to do very well. Yeah.
Got time for a couple more. Far left, second row, Bill.
Hi, Bill Landis from The Athletic. You've recruited this state for other programs. I'm wondering now that you're recruiting this state for Ohio State, does your approach change at all in terms of timeline when you offer kids? Not the tenacity you use to approach recruiting, but
Yeah.
the timeline of things because you were dealing with the power program in the state.
Yeah, I mean, you got to consider that. You have to consider the timing of things, and you have to really make sure that, you know, there's a relationship there. You know, both sides are familiar with each other. So I think you definitely, and that goes with everywhere I've been. When, at home base, you have to really be thorough. And at a school like Ohio State, though, to be honest, I mean, I could be in California and still feel good about, you know, the chances of a kid if you do offer him the kid committing. So I think you have to be very meticulous and very detailed in how you making sure you get every question answered that you need before you extend yourself, because there's a good chance the kid may join in, and obviously it's different when you're home. So.
I guess you kind of touched on what I'm getting at is there's been some discussion here in years past about offering in-state kids too early because you don't want a commitment from a kid that you're not sure how he's going to develop just yet. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if your perspective on that has changed now that you're recruiting here instead of recruiting somewhere else.
Not a ton. You know, if you get a young guy that you know has the earmarks to being a really good player, I think you make your judgment. And so no, I would say no on that.
Right in front of him, Doug?
Doug Maurice, Cleveland.com. How would you describe the relationship that you built up with Zach Harrison during the recruiting process?
Well, it was good. I mean, Zach's he's a great kid, and you know, obviously it's documented. We spent a lot of time, myself, Coach Mattison, and you know, Coach Johnson, obviously. So yeah, it's a good relationship. I mean, I know he and his family well, and a ton of respect for them. Yeah, you know, it's a good relationship.
And then the idea of, could you describe sort of what it was like when he chose Ohio State, and then now you and Coach Mattison are here, and he was saying, you know, probably Coach Johnson and Coach Mattison or you were maybe the guys he spent the most time with, and now he got all of you.
Yeah. Well, when he committed to Ohio State, I was bummed out. You know, I was like, I was pretty upset. But I understood. You know, it was one of those deals where he said, I'm going. I said, hey, man, best of luck to you. And, you know, the decision to come here, you know, it was, we talked, and it's pretty unique, you know. And so to have all the people, I'm sure there's some other coaches he was close with also, but to have us there is pretty unique. So, yeah.
And final questions. Third row right. Kyle?
Kyle Rowland, Toledo Blade.
Kyle.
You and Ryan coached together
Yeah.
in college. Just what were your impressions of him there?
Ryan, just very poised, and he's very in tune to the situation. You know, even the process of me working for him at Boston College was, you know, I think he read it right. And unfortunately, he did. I owe him a lot in that department. You know, every young coach, as you start off, you know, I was in D3, you know, 12 years ago, whatever it was. So you need people to kind of see what you can do. No different than playing a sport. So I think that was my impression of Ryan, and just really poised under the highest of pressure situations, and very knowledgeable and a great motivator. You know, he is a really good motivator. So.
And then once you got into the coaching profession, did you always have a desire to make it to Ohio State?
That's a good question. You know, I've gotten that a lot. Honestly, I just wanted to be the best coach I could be, and wherever that took me, I was willing. Because when you leave, you know, you're gone. This is the first time I've been back since 2012. So I mean, so you kind of just Ohio State's the standard, you know. So it's always be a nice deal, but you know, a lot has to work out for that to happen. So to say it was a lifelong dream, I wouldn't say it was, but it definitely, when it came up, I was like, wow, maybe it should have been a dream, you know, because it was so unique. So,
Coach, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.